Welcome back to Networking Unleashed, Building Profitable Connections. I'm your host, Michael Forman, speaker, strategist, and firm believer that the right connection can change the course of a life or a business. Today's episode is more about more than just networking. It's about resilience. It's about starting over. It's about the power of relationships, not just to grow a business, but to rebuild a life. My guest today is an entrepreneur whose journey through addiction and into recovery has shaped a bold, authentic, and purpose driven approach to networking. Their story is proof that no matter where you've been, you can always build forward one meaningful connection at a time. Whether you're in recovery yourself, supporting someone who is, or just looking ahead to lead with more authenticity and courage in your business relationships, this conversation will meet you right where you are. David, how are you today? And could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Michael, thanks for having me. I am doing fantastic today. And for your listeners, I'm a 40 plus year entrepreneur. And 10 years ago, after working with a brilliant coach, I decided I wanted to offer to entrepreneurs the things that Coach Kevin had offered to me. So I became an entrepreneurial coach and a facilitator. And I'm in recovery from alcoholism. And I made the decision a few years ago, just three or four, to become public about that. And so I now specialize in helping entrepreneurs who are challenged with alcoholism or addiction.
Okay, that's great. And congratulations, because I know how difficult it is, and you've made it this far. So congratulations are in order.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's start. How has your journey through recovery influenced your approach to networking as an entrepreneur?
My recovery is through one of the best known 12-step programs, which is really the fellowship of those programs is the essence of networking. Although you might not realize it when you go in. Like when I walked into my first meeting, I was scared out of my mind. I was probably 5 or 6 years before I really admitted that. And I was just really warmly welcomed and really welcomed into that group. I later joined it as my home group. And one of the things, so I've heard you in other interviews on your podcast talk about how important it is to have great listening skills when you're networking. And 12-step meetings to me, more than almost any other experience I've had in my life, is honoring the person who's speaking. In 12-step recovery meetings, there's typically, it could be going around the room and people are sharing, there could be an invited speaker. But what I've noticed is when the person is speaking about their experience, strength, and hope in their journey before, during, and after recovery, you generally can hear a pin drop in the room. And it's just this respect that everyone has for the person who's speaking. And so that's one of the things I really think is super important in networking is it's not about getting my point of view across. It's really listening to someone else, listening what they do, finding, and then step 12 in recovery is about being of service. So the only way I get to stay sober is to share my experience, stroke, and hope with other people who are suffering in the hope that they'll get something from my experience that will help them. And my belief in networking is that we get the most out of networking when we're being of service to the other people that are there. And rather than it being all about me, it's all about the other people and asking them what they're stuck on and seeing if there's a way that I can help them, which there won't always be. But if nothing else, I can at least be a good listener and honor what they've shared, by reflecting it back or giving perspective on it. So those are some of the ways that my experience in recovery is very overlapped with how and why and the way that I network.
That's great. And I don't want to equate what you've gone through to just networking because I feel that's so small in comparison. But the one thing that I see that is the same is that you approach it with a servant's heart. And
Yes.
because you're looking to give, not to receive. So if you can take that feeling, that knowledge, and just bring it into your networking ordeals, then you should be fine. But having the servant's heart is the really the number one way of networking. And I don't want to compare it to what you went through because there is no comparison. Okay, so what strategies do you use to build authentic connections in business while maintaining your sobriety?
One of the ways is been coming on podcasts like yours and really sharing my journey. For 20 years, I was a daily drinker and I was in complete denial about my alcoholism. And I was a high performing alcoholic. So, I drank because it was rocket fuel so I could get more stuff done. I drank so the lows weren't quite so low. I drank because to make the highs higher. Really, at the end of the day, I drank because I was an alcoholic. And so I share the story of coming into recovery, which actually happens through networking as it happens. So I went to an event with the guy, Vern Harnish, has a couple books called The Rockefeller Habits and Scaling Up, and he's created something called the one-page strategic plan. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs who really find this framework very useful. And I'd heard about it, but I didn't really know the details. And I took an entrepreneur that I was working with and decided to learn more and went to an all-day session that Vern was giving here in Vancouver, Canada. And at the break, he said, "Hey, there are two scaling up coaches at the back of the room." And I went and started talking to them. I talked to both of them, and one of them made me more uncomfortable than I'd been in 4 or 5 years. And he made me really realize that I was completely unfulfilled in this phase of my career. And I won't get into all the details, but I literally had tears in the corner of my eyes at a networking event with like 100 business people, which is, and I'm not necessarily advocating that as a networking strategy. In this, what I heard was what I needed to hear. I think that's the important thing to take away from that experience.
Yeah.
And I took Kevin's card and I had it next to my phone. And probably once a week, I thought about calling him and reaching out. And every time I did, the phone weighed maybe 10,000 pounds. Like I
Right.
wasn't ready to take that step. And then after about 3 weeks, Kevin called me and said, "Hey, do you remember me from the Vern Harnish event?" And I said, "Yes." I didn't say, "I haven't thought about much else in the last 3 weeks," but yeah, I and this is a great example of where Kevin saw something and then he had systems in place so that he made sure to eventually follow up with me.
That's
And I
great.
ended up hiring Kevin as my coach. And he's my kind of guy. It's like I'm all in or all out. There's no in between. With Kevin at that time for one-on-one coaching, his initial coaching session was 2 8-hour days. So that's
Okay.
all in.
That's all.
So we worked on my career and we worked on cleaning all the kind of clutter off the table until after 18 months, I built such a strong trust relationship with him that he was the first person I admitted I had a drinking problem to. And in his personal life, he had encountered people who had long-term sobriety and were part of 12-step recovery. And they'd educated him about how it works. So he had the tools necessary to suggest what to do. And I committed to, that was a Tuesday, January 27th, 2009. And I committed to him to go to a meeting by that Friday. And being the overachiever that I am, I looked online that afternoon and saw that when I was going to be driving home from a networking event at 8 o'clock, there was going to be a meeting a quarter of a block off the road I was driving down that started at 8:30. And that was my first meeting. And the one I
And
just mentioned was the one where I got really welcomed to and actually made what's called a home group, which is a group I commit to going to every week. And I was there last Tuesday night. So I've been going there for 16 years.
that's really great. And thank you for sharing that with us. How did you navigate disclosing your recovery in professional settings?
So let's back up the story a little bit. After Kevin, he'd stopped one-on-one coaching, and I switched coaches to his coach, a woman by the name of Nan O'Connor, based in Atlanta. And then after we worked together, and I told her about my recovery and that from the get-go. But as we worked together over the years, she kept reflecting back to me how every time we talked about my recovery and my experiences in 12-step recovery, how pure my energy was. And also, any question she asked me, I had answers for. And she just kept prodding me a little bit to go public. That took a little while, probably took a couple years. And it's not like she brought it up every coaching call. It's just from time to time, something would come up around my recovery. I'd talk about it. She said, wow, like, it's just your energy is so pure around this. And then again, all in or all out. So once I made the decision to out myself publicly and let people know, I shot some videos, I put them on YouTube, I promoted them on social media, and if I'm in a networking event and I introduce myself, I say, hi, I'm David Greer. Just like I did at the start of this interview today. Hi, I'm Coach David Greer. I'm a 40-plus year entrepreneur, business coach, and facilitator, and I work with entrepreneurs who generally owner-founders who have businesses with 10 to 200 employees. And I specialize in working with entrepreneurs who are challenged one way or another with alcoholism and or addiction. And it's that simple. It's part of that very quick summary of who and what I am and who I try and help.
You had to go through what you went through for you to have that clarity so you can
Yes.
actually go out and talk to people. But everything relies on something else. And but you got to the point where you are clear, you had that clarity when you speak, because you are so well in tune with what you went through and that you're trying to help somebody else from going through. It's nothing but a great thing. That's all.
Thank you.
Let's go to challenges. What unique challenges do entrepreneurs in recovery face when networking, and how do you overcome them?
I do a fair amount of coaching around this particular area, especially because CEOs, business owners, generally when get invited to anything in the business community, there's always sponsors who want to sponsor the bar because they want to get access to these people. So booze is usually free.
Yeah.
And I coach around things like always have a drink in your hand. Like a glass of water is fine, but you don't want someone else offering to get you a drink, because especially someone who's not comfortable in being public about their sobriety, and you don't owe an explanation to anyone, but you also don't want to get into a big, no, I really don't want a beer. And so you can head off at the pass some of those questions by always having a drink in your hand. Another thing that is critically important, I believe, is that you need to have an exit strategy before you get there. So if you get triggered, and I have had this happen at networking events where you don't know when you'll be triggered. I can go to 10 networking events and it's perfectly fine. And then one, something that triggers my subconscious brain and I'm feeling really uncomfortable. So I have to have an exit strategy. And I particularly have to work out with my spouse if we're going to a networking or some kind of social event or a charity gala or something, okay, dear, I'm going to let you know if I get triggered, I'm going to leave. Now, are you coming with me? Because if not, we need to have separate transportation. You need to talk this through and have a plan ahead of time, because maybe she'll stay and you'll leave. And then you also have to have the little story that she's going to tell people. But you need to do this for your protection. So This is really important that if you know there's drinking going to be involved, and many networking events, especially in the afternoon and the evening, there is, how are you going to protect yourself?
Okay, you answered my next question, so I'm going to just skip over it. And can you share an example of a pivotal connection that significantly impacted your business or recovery?
That's why I shared meeting Coach Kevin, right? Getting
Right.
sober is the single biggest achievement in my life. And my belief is that the universe put Coach Kevin in my path so I could get sober. And right. And I go to this event with no notion at all of Kevin and the other coach. We're just networking, meeting entrepreneurs, talking to them, being of same thing, being of service, and obviously looking for business. But they were doing a lot of coaching in the back of the room. And it was a pivotal encounter that led to the single biggest achievement of my life. So it's unquestionably my most important person that I've met through networking.
Okay. Okay. How has networking contributed to your personal growth in recovery?
So, I network for a number of reasons. I was thinking about this before I came on the podcast today. Like, for one thing, I'm at a stage where I generally only go to networking events if I think they're going to be fun
Okay.
or they're going to have a piece of learning. And there's something in addition to the networking forms part of a bigger event. And sorry, I've lost the question. I know where I am in the answer, but you have to remind me of the
How has
question.
networking contributed to your personal growth in recovery?
Yeah, and I look for those things that are going to challenge my personal or professional growth. I also, like on the personal side, I found a conference that happens every January in Mexico, which is run by people from AA and Al Anon. It's called Sobriety Under the Sun. Tracks about 800 people. And the speakers that they have, it's not exactly a networking event, but it is because you're there with the thing is, my tribe is recovering people, and especially recovering people who use 12-step recovery as their method for getting and staying sober and living life on life's terms. And I've learned a tremendous amount by the leadership or by the speakers there, not just in recovery, but their example in life and like what they have done in life subsequent to getting sober and how they have served their communities in different ways. So it inspires me not just in my personal life, but also in my business life. And then a lot of this personal growth that I've needed to do in order to grow in recovery has then let me show up much better as a coach. So this personal growth work, while it's not directly learning a new technical skill or what AI is useful for, those can be useful too. But getting to know myself better because now I can get myself out of the way more when I'm on coaching calls.
Granted that your personal growth can help you while you're coaching, so you can help other people, but your personal growth with just about everything else that you have a new appreciation for because you know that you're sober, but you can contribute so much more. And that's what a big thing is.
Yeah, and I'm a lot more empathetic. I've been to probably 2,500 12-step meetings now. And like the number of stories I've heard and like the inspiration of what people have managed to overcome and being able to hear those stories and be inspired by them has also then formed my own ability to inspire others, to help others to inspire others. So again, it's when people hire me as a coach, they often say, we're only going to talk about business issues. And I go, I'll never talk to you about anything you don't want to talk about. Now, 6 months in, almost guaranteed there'll be some personal or life issue that enters into our
I'm sure.
coaching discussion because this notion that we can compartmentalize ourselves into these finite rooms. There's my career room, there's my personal resiliency room, there's my relationship room, is just completely bogus. So my belief very deeply, especially as a coach, is that, and as an entrepreneur, is whenever we grow in business, personally, relationships, that growth spills over into every other aspect of our life.
I agree 100%. There's no way that you can You can't separate all the different things of your life, of your business life, because it's so intertwined. There's a saying, an entrepreneur, but there's a solopreneur. I'm a solopreneur because I'm by myself and I go out and I speak and everything else. But there's a work-life balance that I have to keep with my wife, with my family, with my job, with they all have to work together. Otherwise, they don't work at all. And that's what I think you try to explain. Let me go on advice. What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs in recovery who are looking to expand their network?
If 12-step recovery works for you, I'd highly recommend that. That
Right.
obviously expands your sober community, and people in recovery tend to help other people in recovery. So I've had some career opportunities that were a result of networking through 12-step recovery. There's that aspect. And then my general advice is you need to know your tribe. So whether that's other recovering entrepreneurs or it's like other entrepreneurs at your level, like there's some peer networking groups here in Vancouver. And some of them, I think, do a great job of matching entrepreneurs. So they get entrepreneurs to meet monthly who are roughly at the same stage status, like not way bigger or further or way lower. I think whether you're in recovery or not and you're an entrepreneur, it's who is your tribe? I really encourage entrepreneurs to not do it alone, to find others, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a coach, but also to find your peers in your community who you can network and to spend some time with. And it's not necessarily you listen to another entrepreneur and do what they did. Oftentimes it's listening to another entrepreneur and realizing the struggles you have, others have. And that it's not, yeah, it's not just me.
And it's true. The people that I coach are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs that are up to a certain level. But I have a coach, I have a mentor, and because I need to go further. So, regardless of where you are on that ladder, you need somebody, yet you can help people.
Yes.
So, that's the way that I see it. So, let's bring this whole thing full circle. And how do you see the intersection of entrepreneurship and recovery shaping future network practices?
Wow. I'm not certain I have an answer to that. I've really struggled to find other coaches like me, business coaches who specialize in recovery. So if you're one of those and you're listening, I'd love for you to get in touch. And there's also, I know of one recovering entrepreneur community that I found. And I think that's a really interesting idea because I think that as recovering alcoholics, I talked about like some of these networking problems. There's also problems in closing big deals where alcohol is usually involved and now you don't drink. So that because of the role of an entrepreneur, I think it's very helpful if you're working if and can network with other entrepreneurs who are also in recovery. So I encourage you to find those. But again, not many people are being public. So it's a challenge to figure out. Most people just don't want to be public about their recovery. So I don't really have an answer to that, but I'd like to see more of it.
That's okay. Listen, David, how can somebody get hold of you? If somebody wanted to be coached by you or just sit down and talk to you about anything, how can they get hold of you?
So a two-part answer. So the first part is I want all your listeners to know that I have an offer. I offer 1 hour free coaching to anyone who wants it. If you're stuck on something, it doesn't business, alcohol related, it doesn't matter. Reach out to me and I'm happy to spend an hour with you. Now, how do you reach out to me? CoachDJGreer.com. That's Coach D as in David, J as in James, Greer.com. Top left corner of every single webpage on my website has my phone number and my email address. So use one of those and reach out to me or use the contact form if that feels better for you.
Perfect. David, I can tell you're a great guest and you information. I hope all my listeners got just as much information, and I really appreciated you coming on.
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciated being here today.
Well, hold on, folks. Don't go anywhere. Let me just read a few of our sponsors that we have. Struggling to reach success? Maybe it's time to quit. In Quit Your Way to Success by Rodney Davis, this reveals 27 steps to breaking bad habits that hold you back. This powerful book helps you rewire your mindset, take control of your actions, and turn setbacks into stepping stones. With real life examples, motivational quotes, and actionable lessons, especially for sales professionals, you'll gain the tools to quit what's stopping you and start winning. Transform your future today. So Quit Your Way to Success by Rodney Davis, available now on Amazon. And this is a nonprofit called Revved Up Kids. This is something I believe in wholeheartedly. Revved Up Kids is on a mission to protect children and teens from sexual abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. They provide prevention training programs for children, teens, and adults. To learn more, go to revvedupkids.org. That's REVVEDUPKIDS.org. A huge thank you to our guest for sharing such incredible insights today. And of course, a big shout out to you, our amazing listeners, for tuning in and spending your time with us. If you're interested in my digital courses, being coached, or having me come and talk to your company, just go to Michael and fill out the request form. Remember, networking isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. So take what you've learned today, get out there, and make some meaningful connections. If you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little networking inspiration. Let's keep the conversation going. You can find me on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, or my website, forman.com/podcasts.